Our latest edition of Real Talk, where we put the real in real estate. And we have the real deal, Justin Holland, representative from HD33 and one of our very own Metrotex members. Justin, thank you for being here this evening.
This is awesome. I'm actually getting to do it from the Capitol. Last time I was at my office at Regal Realtors in Rockwall. We're at the Capitol today, and I just finished a full day of committee meetings and floor votes and all the things that come with being right in the middle of session. I'm very excited to be back on Real Talk with you.
No, that's fantastic. So just so everybody knows, Justin and I were texting beforehand saying I'm coming in hot. He was actually presenting a bill to the committee and was trying to get it pushed up. So he sent me the live stream of the committee meeting. Our back-end producer, Parker, was putting the live stream in where Justin Square is now. So at least if we were waiting on you, we could see you talking and see you coming in. But you made it, and we appreciated that. And that's just the dedication not only to HD33, but also to the real estate industry by you doing that. So let's start off. You are in session right now, and I think we throw that word around a lot, but there are a lot of people that don't understand what the session is and what the components are, and that it's not something that happens overnight. In fact, you're going to spend a good portion of your year in session in Austin, right?
That's right. Yeah. So session means the legislative session that happens every 2 years for the Texas legislature. The Constitution calls the House and the Senate to be called to a regular session every odd-numbered year. And so this is a 2023 year. It's the 88th legislative session. So it's pretty neat. There's only 150 House members and 31 senators. So there's 181 legislators out of 30 million people that get to do what I do. And I'm very blessed to get to do that. But we are here for an 140-day session. So I'm right smack in the middle of it. I think I do have a countdown on my phone, and we're about 56 days away from what we call sine die, which means something no further business in Latin.
Got it. Well, so what are we doing? I mean, you just presented a bill in committee right before you came on here. So what does that look like? I mean, we hear the term, writing bills and presenting bills, but then how do they actually get passed? What is that process to go through to kind of ratify that?
Sure. The first thing you have to do is file one. And so to file one, you have to have somebody that's worked on the language. We have primarily the Texas Legislative Council is our group of lawyers that write our bills. We may write some of the language or make some tweaks and amendments, but the bills are written by the Texas Legislative Council. We give them direction, and our office does. You can start filing those bills in November, right after the session. Right before the session starts, but after the general election and the votes are canvassed. So we start filing bills in November, and you get to file them all the way until March the 10th. So it's a 60-day constitutional bill filing period. Okay. During the first part of session, we're doing a lot of meeting with constituents and groups and people that come in for different days, whether it be Collin County Day, Rockwall County Day,
Realtor Day,
all the days that are out there. We're meeting with those. Then we have committees that come out, and we go into start having committee meetings. I'm serving on. I'm the vice chair of the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission, and I've been there for a year and a half. But I'm also on Homeland Security and Public Safety. I'm on a committee called Community Safety, and I'm also on one called Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, which deals with a lot of the parks and wildlife, fishing and hunting, and that type of deal. So committees start going. And then once the bills filing deadline is over, we start to refer bills to committees. So all the bills that we filed, over 5,000 bills in the House, once those get done, the Speaker's office and the parliamentarians start to figure out what kind of subject matter those bills fit in, and they send them to the most likely germane committee of subject matter. And then those committees start setting those bills. We start as legislators, ask the chairman of the committees to have our bills for hearings. And that's kind of what we started doing about 4 weeks ago. Okay. And so I had 6 bill layouts today. I had 2 yesterday. I had 6 last Wednesday. And so that's what we're in the time of session right now, where you got to get those bills before committee, have them heard, have public testimony, have a debate in the public and in a hearing. And then we try to move them out of the committee and get them to the calendars so that we can get them to the floor. And then we got to get them over to the Senate. So both sides have to pass each other's bills. So,
okay. That's a lot.
It is.
I thought I in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the inner workings of serving for MetroTex, and obviously there's commonalities in doing that. And I'm like, I'm exhausted in our realtor association stuff, and what you do at a state level is just huge, because you're not only a state rep, you're a father, you're a husband, you're a business owner. Regal Realtors, cemented in Rockwall. We were just talking, you guys have over 150 realtors now in your brokerage.
Yeah, we just hit 150 with offices in Rockwall, and just in our Fort Worth office just opened up. We've got about 15 out there, and we've got about 15 north of Colorado, up in Windsor, Colorado. But that's not the 150, but yeah.
Maybe you should bring a brokerage down to Austin, since you spend so much time there as well. So
it's been talked about, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We've already got a question, and we're going to go. We've got a few things that we definitely want to make sure we touch on today, but this was actually one of them. It was a bill in regards to ADUs. And so HB 2789, Donna is stating that not all communities are fans of ADUs. So her question is, why force every city in Texas to allow them with no city input?
Sure. Well, so the ADU bill, we had a committee substitute, and we just laid that out last week, and we had a robust discussion. It was about an hour and a half committee process. And the ADUs, the biggest thing about that bill is that no part of the bill supersedes any historical district ordinance, HOA covenant or restriction. And really, the ADU deal does not affect our area very much at all,
right?
Because we live in an area where there's HOA covenants, and basically I would challenge anybody that has a problem with the ADU bill to look at their HOA and their covenants and restrictions, any local short-term rental policies, anything like that. The bill does not supersede or preempt any of that. We're really more looking at places like Austin, Houston, Dallas, where there's a housing affordability and a workforce issue.
Yeah.
We look at this as a private property rights issue. If your setbacks are allowable, you own the property, you should be able to have one in your backyard, and you should be able to use it for what you want to. The realtors have supported this bill.
Yep.
We believe that if you want a son or a daughter, maybe that just graduated from college, an elderly parent, a caretaker for somebody in your household that might be elderly or maybe with a disability, or just a family member or whatnot, we believe that the ADU is a good product to be able to have somebody that maybe is not somewhere in their progression of their career yet, or they can live closer. I use the example, a lot of the Capitol staffers, nurses, firefighters, police, someone that wants to live really close to where they work. I've got a Capitol staffer that drives in from San Marcos every day. I've got one Capitol staffer that lives with a mom and dad. We've heard instances where maybe somebody wants a little independence, but can't, doesn't want to be in a continuous care retirement community, but wants to live with a son or a daughter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positives to it, and we're working through the kinks on this bill. There's some people that have opposition to the bills that will never be okay with them, and they just like to kind of jack with you on it, and we're okay with that too.
Say it ain't so. On that, I'll speak from the realtor side, and we did just have Realtor Day at the Capitol, which was a great experience, and just to see everything work and all the motions. But from the affordability side on the ADUs, and Justin, you're an owner, practitioner, a generational realtor yourself. I mean, this is something that is coming up more and more, and people are having to age in their homes, go through different phases in life phases in their homes. And so even from an ADU perspective, constructing a private office space sometime is restricted. And those are things that we obviously saw during COVID, is the work from home aspect, different things like that. So I think in a traditional, I appreciate you explaining that it doesn't supersede building requirements and restrictions, HOA restrictions. But it's just if you have a property that is readily available that you could put an accessory dwelling unit. So for anybody who doesn't know, that's what an ADU is. That they should be afforded that individual property owner's rights to be able to construct one and do so.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much if you own the property and you're abiding by your HOA policies or any, most cities have ADU or outbuilding type policies.
Yes.
And in fact, some of them need to update them anyways. I think the city I live in Heath, they still call them servants' quarters in their ordinances. So that probably could be looked at too.
Way to throw that out there. Letitia, we are going to go to that question in just a second. I want to touch on a couple of things, Justin. So one that I know as we as the Realtor Association has gotten a lot of feedback on is Senate Bill 147. And that is, I believe that is hopefully that is the right number. You can correct me otherwise, but the one in regards to foreign persons and foreign governments being able to procure real estate in the state of Texas. I know that's a Senate bill and not a House bill, but do you have any feedback or any commentary on that?
Yeah, there's been a little discussion on that, really. So I think the spirit of this bill, which is where I'd like to talk about, because, our area is diverse. My district is very diverse. There's a lot of people that don't look like you and I that live in our communities, and they make our communities better. That's not where this bill's aimed at. We're not trying to have people that move their family from China or India or other places not be able to buy land. This is aimed at, foreign entities, foreign countries that could be looking at doing something negative to Texas, or whether it be China or Russia or the things that you hear in North Korea, the things that you hear in the news that are negative, or from a national security perspective. Somebody that moved over and immigrated and did the right thing and became a legal permanent resident and ultimately became a naturalized citizen that wants to come. That's not what I believe that the spirit of this legislation. I think it's aimed at not allowing countries and entities close to countries like China or Russia to come in and buy up land around military facilities or around our security, electricity assets and the grid and those types of things. And so that's really what I would say on that. Is the spirit of this bill is not to discriminate against immigrants. It's to keep national security and state security issues at the forefront of making sure that we know the people that are buying up the land around our security assets and military assets.
Awesome. Well, I have my esteemed Secretary Treasurer, Johnny Moad. He is actually serving as a director to the Cape in the northeast of the country. And apparently that's an ongoing issue up there, not just in Texas. So he said, glad to see us being proactive about the subject in Texas as well. P.S. Love the haircut. It's actually not a haircut. I've got clips in my hair, so my hair's not bothering my face, but thank you, Johnny. And he said, thank you, Justin, for your service. So again, I mean, that's what it's all going back to is you are serving this great state and HD 33 and everything that you're doing. So sometimes maybe something needs to be rewritten or edited or something else. But if we're looking at the spirit and the context of some of these things that are being presented, Homeland Security is obviously on the forefront and something that we need to make sure that we keep an eye on. You mentioned that you are on the Community Safety and Homeland Security Committee. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm on both. So the community safety is actually a select committee that the speaker appointed, and it's made up of members of the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee, as well as members throughout the House that have either had a mass tragedy in their community. So we have representatives from Odessa, we have representatives from Uvalde, we have representatives from El Paso, as well as others who have served on the Robb Elementary Investigative Committee. And most of the issues related to guns and Second Amendment have been sent to this committee as well. In fact, the one that I was rushing over from today is carrying a bill that would increase penalties for, felony offenders of gun crimes that have a second or subsequent indictment or felony conviction. And so, we want to we're taking school safety really seriously, not from just a funding perspective, but also from a making sure that violent criminals and those who are not responsibly not the responsible gun owners and those who are law-abiding citizens, the people that are the really bad actors, we need to take a multifaceted approach at responsible, community safety, funding our schools, funding school safety assets, a hardening of schools, beefing up of security at schools and school resource officers, as well as, locking people up that are bad guys for a long time.
Well, I think, cause and effect. And sometimes what we're seeing is a symptom of there not being a lot of consequences. And so it's great to hear that that's something that you're helping push that forward. And hopefully that is successful. I don't know many people, regardless of what side of the political spectrum they sit on, that wouldn't be in favor of increased policy around violent offenders with guns. So appreciate you doing that. And Justin, keep us posted on that as well. So, okay. So another thing that is really a big topic, it also goes to affordability. We've tried to create some more transparency around that, but special districts, specifically in taxing, capacity, it's a real problem. We've talked about it before. I'm from Rockwall as well. And I think you used the example that if you're in Rockwall versus Fate, the affordability swing between the two, because Fate specifically has an extreme amount of special districts and taxing authorities for different reasons. And that we just need more transparency around that so the individual consumer understands what they're doing. So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing around that specific subject.
Yeah, that's been a big part of what I've worked on for a few different sessions, or a couple different sessions now. But basically, the special districts, specifically municipal utility districts, the MUDs, they lack so much transparency, communication, local checks and balances, those types of things. And not only from the creation perspective, but also from the perspective of making sure that that the people that are moving into these districts have the transparency, the disclosure and notification to buyers that's happening. And so I have some bills that deal with special districts transparency and notifications, as well as those that would bring a system of local checks and balances back to the county level, back to the cities. We have some instances right now where we have people moving into Rockwall, developers moving in to develop things in Rockwall. And it's kind of fly by night outside of the session. A lot of the people like myself or Senator Hall or the commissioners courts and the locals don't know a whole lot about it until the district's created. And so we just need to make sure that we're making sure that every person, every entity locally, whether it be transportation related, whether it's water infrastructure, the schools, to make sure that we can, that the areas that these developments are going in special districts that are created, can hold and bear the brunt of the sheer amount of cars, people, development, water impact on the local community.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And I'm glad you brought up the infrastructure and utilities too, because it's not just about the cost back to the individual property owner that they're bearing on that. And, something for us, and obviously this is real talk with the real estate industry, going out and assisting first-time home buyers right now is a big thing, and finding, and I think it's great that there is affordable product that's being developed in some of our more rural areas. I mean, Fate was considered a more rural area when it started getting developed. And what happens though is that often people don't even understand where these come from, where these additional taxing districts and stuff. And it's because developers will go in there and decide, hey, and they'll go back to the city, they'll go back to the county and say, we'd love to bring some housing. We'd love to bring product, to bring in more tax revenue to you guys and be able to offer affordable housing. But we need to be able to pass off some of the cost of infrastructure, utilities, something else. We need some help. And so then comes up, we've got MUDs, we've got PIDs, we've got,
MMPs.
Yep. So, there's several of them. And the unfortunate part is if you go on the appraisal district website and see the different taxing, entities and what the rates are, those special districts don't always show up. And it's unfortunate until you're actually the recipient of a transaction where you have to deal with that. You really have to dig. And I think that's what Justin's talking about right now, is we shouldn't have to dig through and go find that information. It should be readily available so people know up front what they're dealing with. And I think that's a big issue. I use that with my first time, whether it's first time home buyer or anybody in a more affordable, priced housing price point. Don't just look at the price of the home. We've got taxes that we have to look at. We have to look at insurance and insurability. And I just use one. She's an assistant principal. In fact, we actually went to Rockwell High School together.
Okay.
We played sports together, and then she moved away and we lost touch, but I ended up helping the principal at the school. She now is the assistant principal out in Princeton. And so, I'm sorry, Farmersville. And so she reached out and said, "You wouldn't believe it. You helped my principal. Can you help me buy my first house?" And it was kind of a cool first circle moment. And we actually just closed on Friday. And it was awesome. But educating her through the process of, it's not just about the house, especially when you're looking in Caddo Mills, Princeton, Farmersville, Nevada, Lavon. Those are all areas that are heavily relied on those special districts. And so when we were looking at it, comparing three different houses, a $320,000 house, a $350,000 and a $380,000. Well, that $380,000 house was actually cheaper with the escrows calculated than the $320,000 house, because the $380,000 house was outside city limits and didn't have special districts or taxing units. And so we just need to be mindful of that. And I'm really, I think it's great, Justin, that you're continuing to advocate for our industry and for homeowners alike on that.
Well, I think it's notable that we're not against the special districts.
No.
We want more transparency,
Yes.
communication, because ultimately, and I'm speaking directly to realtors that represent buyers and sellers, to disclose the areas that you're buying in, if there's a special district, what it is, how much they paid last year. Because the last thing you want is somebody to call you a year or 18 months later and say, Ashley, what is this extra $3,000 or $4,000 that I have to pay that I didn't know about when I bought it here? It's actually really expensive for us to live in here. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't have bought here. And there's the same amount of people that would say, I want to buy in this area because of the amenities, how close it is to the schools. And I'm willing to pay the extra $4,000 because the roads are new. They're good. Yeah. There's an amenity center. There's a swimming pool, golf course, or whatever it may be.
But they should be able to weigh those. And I think that's what everybody should be able to make a decision with all the information. You're fine. And Letitia, that's the problem. She said, I thought the title company did that, meaning kind of going through the tax certification process and everything else. That's the difference. Some of these aren't classified as a tax in the same way that it's categorized on the appraisal district or anything else like that. And so that's what we're working through, is the fact that sometimes there is a surprise bill that wasn't found when a tax certification is done, or it's zeroed out because the way it's filed, it can change year over year and be dependent on amounts, and the county can set the new rate and everything else. So sometimes it just comes back at a zero, and that's the issue.
That's right. Every agent and seller and buyer should be asking the question, doing the research. What are my taxes for city, school, and county? Are there any road and bridge districts? Are there any other special districts? And many times you'll find that weighing two different neighborhoods with each other, they would rather choose the one that doesn't have an extra $3,000 or $4,000 a year. And maybe sometimes they choose to do that.
Well, it all comes back to everybody should have all the information up front when they're making the largest purchase of most people's lives. And so, Justin, again, thank you for trying to help carve that pathway of additional transparency. So going back up to Letitia's comment earlier, and I've heard actually from a staff member at the association that there's a bill that's tied to the number of children in a household in regards to maybe some property tax relief or something else. Is this something that you're aware of?
it's something that I'm aware of, and it's a bill that I don't expect to move or go anywhere. Like I said, 5,000 bills get filed, and not all of them are great ideas. I know exactly which bill you're talking about. I don't expect it to move. We will be seeing big property tax bills that deal with tax caps, appraisal caps versus a homestead exemption. Currently, just quite frankly, the Texas House and Senate are split on the issue. The Texas House wants to cap all property appraisal increases at 5%, including commercial. And the Texas Senate wants to raise the homestead exemption from 40 to 70. That's about a $3 billion play on the homestead exemption. It's great. But I'll tell you this, I don't have people come up to me at my kids' cheer games or dance competitions or community events complaining about their homestead exemption. They complain about skyrocketing values, assessment values. That's what the Texas House is focused on, and we will come to some sort of agreement. The good part is the Texas House and Senate are in complete alignment on a large amount of tax compression that would go directly towards the school district M&O portion.
Right.
So the school district portion of your property tax, which is your largest part, can be decreased. So whether we end up with a higher homestead exemption or a lower cap or a combination of both, we're committed to compressing the M&O property tax at the ISD level. And I think there's a lot of talk about trying to figure out how to completely make that go away in a period of 10 years or so.
I think that's fantastic. I actually went for a run this morning, and I have one of my favorite investor clients text me. He's a great referral source. We talk all the time. He said, I need to check in with you on the real estate market. Do you have a time to talk? Which usually means he has a grievance and he needs to air it with me. And so that's when I said, perfect time when I'm outside running so I can blow off steam while I'm doing it. And we were just talking about the market in general. And he said, Ashley, I just got the notice from my mortgage company that my escrows are going up $400 a month in a single family residential investment property, rental property in Wiley. And he said, look, I love my tenant. But he said, I said, I get it. It's not charity. And he said, I can't foot the bill. And so she's coming up for renewal. We kind of in several months. And I said, look, this is what you need to do. You never know. She can sit there and say, you've been good to me. And I understand that. I said, but talk to her now. Tell her what happened with your escrows and that you're not going to go up the full 400, but you'll meet her somewhere in the middle at $200. But that he wanted to give her time to be able to effectively make a decision over the next 7 to 9 months. Can she stay and afford it, or does she need to look for other housing that maybe is a little bit more affordable? And he said, how are people doing this? How are investors? And I said, well, here's what's happening. I said, one, we've got discussions right now going on in session trying to help this very fact, because we hear the empath side of tenant protection and everything else, and it's unaffordable to even rent homes in our areas. But we have to shine the light now that there's no protection on the increase of tax liability for investors that are non-homesteaded. And so it's that was the conversation I had with him. I said, I will keep you posted to see what that looks like. I will help you protest your taxes this year. It's probably not going to work, but we'll at least give it a shot. Sure. All you can do now is at least disclose that and see where we go from there. But that's not what people are looking at. They think, landlord bad, commercial bad, all of these other things, but they make our communities go round. And the impact, and I know you know this, Justin, as being a practitioner as well, is what happens. My client will keep his property, but somebody else that can't afford to keep their property is either going to turn around and they're going to sell it, and it will end up entering back into owner occupant, right? Because an investor is not going to be able to cash flow the property. So we actually lose quality rental product in our communities for people that can't purchase right now. Or they turn around and raise the rent and skyrocket instead of marginally raising it to offset that increase. So again, thank you for keeping on and trying to carve out those pathways to help everybody. I mean, tax burden is across the board. Mine went up $500. For my personal residence. So we've got to keep our eye on that, and hopefully we get some really exciting updates, coming out of the session. So keep me posted personally on that one, will you? You will
okay. Hear about it.
Good. Okay. So something else, you said you were vice chair of the Sunset Commission.
That's right.
And that is actually a really interesting commission from the standpoint of what they do. In fact, TREC, our regulatory agency for the state of Texas for licensees, just went through this process, I think a couple years ago. So what is the Sunset Commission, and what is the goal, and what does that look like?
Well, so the basic mission of the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission is to enhance government accountability to the legislature and the people of Texas by objectively evaluating the need for and the value of state programs and services. So what we do is we evaluate state agencies. This session, we're evaluating likely about probably 20 to 22 agencies, maybe closer to 30, I believe. We've got agencies such as the PUC, ERCOT, TCEQ, various river authorities. We have, I'm carrying the Texas Veterinary Board of Medical Examiners bill this session. So, and then next session, we've got other ones that'll swing in, and we'll have about 20 agencies next session, which I will presumably be the chair of next time. And so it's a really neat way to dig into state government. I've had the opportunity and the blessing to serve on both appropriations and sunset. And you get to really learn about state government when you dig into their budgets and the operation and effective and efficiency of their operations.
So what's the goal of it? What's the goal on the end? Is it to fix the budgetary process? Is it to keep them, this is something that's even a little bit over my head, and I was doing a little research on it, really understanding what the goals are coming out of it.
Yeah, so the goal is to make sure that the assets that the state and the people of Texas are putting into, we pass a budget every 2 years.
Yep.
We put money that are allocated to state agencies. Every state agency puts in what's called an LAR, Legislative Appropriations Request. And then if they have any exceptional items, there'll be an exceptional items request that they put in as well. And the legislature determines whether or not we fund that or not. And we do fund that in many cases if we see the need. So the Sunset Commission exists to make sure that they're using the funds correctly. But not only that, there's a multifaceted approach at this. We're looking at their management operations, as well as if there's any changes that need to be made in the statute. As we grow and the state grows, as technology grows, there's data software needs. There are other licensing needs, data collection and management. There's a lot of different things that need to evolve with the law. And we've had a lot of laws that are from, the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s that need to be kind of updated with the new times. And so we look at both statutory and management recommendations that state agencies need to do. Okay. The commission's made up of 4 House members, 4 Senate members, and 2 public members. And so we have this session, we have the Senate is chairing the Sunset Commission, and next session we will chair the Sunset Commission. And the commissioners are made up of House members, senators, and public members that are appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker. And we serve 4-year terms. And so I'm in my second of 4 years right now. And so it's a mechanism to kind of put state agencies under the microscope and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And then if they even need to exist anymore. Sometimes state agencies need to be abolished because they're not working and we can fold them into somewhere else. A lot of times there's other state agencies that would have a better oversight of some state agencies. And so we will fold an agency into another so that they can operate better or efficiently than they do and they have been right now.
See, we are doing things right from the legislative side, making sure that there's, that there's oversight. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand. There are those mechanisms in place to make sure that, one, we're being fiscally responsible and that these agencies are still operating with the goal in mind and are efficiently doing so. So appreciate you again, continued service on there, and good luck with the next 2 years after your service this year. So I wanted to show one thing, and it's going to be backwards, but these are our Texas Realtors legislative priorities for the 88th Texas legislature. Yeah. Oh,
Like,
Look at that. You've got it sitting there. So we'll actually put that link in there just so we can do that. But that's a great way for our realtors that are listening today and even the consumers to understand which bills we're really paying attention to as we go through this session. There's a few that I think I kind of want to touch on. And again, I'm not going to put you on the spot to know everything that's going on. So going back to tenant landlord relations. I know that there's both a House bill and a Senate bill that's out there right now. Just eviction laws uniformity. We've got a lot of local municipalities that are creating their own policies on what eviction laws are and what can be done. And again, it goes to affordability, both on the rental side and the home side when we do this. And so it's my understanding that the spirit of this is just, again, to create uniformity, that one local municipality can't over-regulate and do something that would impede upon an individual property owner's rights, or really have a cause and effect situation that would create a continued housing unaffordability situation with not being able to evict a non-paying tenant.
Yeah, it's you couldn't have put that any better. It definitely is just creating a uniform state law to make sure that private property owners, investors, those that may own either homes or multi-units can do what they need to do with their property. I mean, there are some cities that are trying to preempt a private property owner's right to evict somebody that hasn't paid their rent in a really long time. And, it's not that complicated. If you don't pay your car payment, you get your car taken from you. If you don't pay your house payment, you get your house. If you don't pay your rent, if you don't pay your AT&T bill, they cut your phone line off. And so, I don't like getting so caught up in it. It's basic personal responsibility. Yes. If you need to be evicted because you haven't paid rent in a really long time, the city can't tell a landowner that he's not allowed to evict somebody. That's what this is. It's statewide uniformity.
Well, I hope some of our lovely counterparts at Dallas are listening right now, because they did reach out and they asked why we were doing this, and not why, but why we were supporting this. And that's the hard part. It doesn't mean that there are not special circumstances where somebody doesn't need to intervene, that there's a bad actor, landlord, or something else like that. But we keep on always going to the exception instead of the rule. And, I'll sit there and bag on Dallas just a little bit right now. Their current legislative priorities are to extend the notice to vacate from 3 days. It was 30. They've backed down to 21 days, which basically means that you can't even give them a notice to vacate the property for 3 weeks after being delinquent on paying their rent. That there's going to be a cure period after that notice, that they would then be given an additional time period to actually cure the infraction. So now you're up to, I think, somewhere up to 60 days that an individual property owner, and that's what people look at. They think they're all institutional. Justin, you've been in the real estate game for a really long time. To build generational wealth and to continue to be smart with diversifying your assets. I mean, most of my investors are all mom and pop. We go back to immigrants, realizing that's the way that you continue to build wealth and a legacy for your family. And they buy real estate and they leverage it as rental properties. And so there's not a lot of people. I don't know what the statistic was, that it was something like over 50% of people wouldn't even be able to come up with $2,500 within like a 3-day period if something were to happen outside of their normal budget. And I think it's a lot bigger than that. You sit there and you go, somebody that is already not cash flowing enough money because of property taxes and insurance and everything else and maintenance cost. And then you have a non-paying tenant that you, on average, even in landlord favorable areas, it can take up to 90 days to actually take back legal possession of the property and be able to legally start trying to relet it. And so we just have to think of it from every angle. And I'm glad that our Texas legislators are trying to do something that help people understand how to be a little bit more responsible on those sides.
Yeah, and it's not to say that there's not any landlords out there that wouldn't have their own grace and their own forgiveness and help through a tough time. it would be the fact that a city was telling somebody that they couldn't do something with their property. This goes back to the ADU discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So something else that we've continued to talk about, and I think it's just the property tax side. So what else is going on conversationally, just besides, I mean, because we have the largest surplus we've ever seen. And I know there's a lot of discussion of what that looks like. So not only future tax relief, but where are we in those conversations of now immediate tax relief for the people that have been burdened by this as well?
Yeah. So the biggest, most, I think, immediate relief you're going to get is going to be in the compression piece.
Okay.
We have a large surplus, but we also have spending caps. We'll have to pass some sort of a measure to bust the spending cap. So that'll be something that you'll see. But I think you're looking at somewhere around $12 billion. It's going to be used to compress the M&O portion of the ISD tax. So that's immediate. You'll see that in the next budget cycle.
Okay.
You have to remember this budget is for 24 and 25, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
So that will be the next thing you see. Anything that you saw would be more long-term would be a cap or a homestead exemption. The one piece to think of on the homestead exemption, it's really great if the school portion of your tax reduces the value that you're taxed on, but the person that those who are stuck with that bill are either the state of Texas and the school districts, because the school districts are the ones that comes from. So, I'm a big fan and proponent of public schools. And I do believe that we need to continue to fully fund and adequately fund our public schools. And that's something that I'm committed to voting for legislation on. I'm also in favor of people paying less in taxes. So we have to figure out the best mechanism for that without hurting the schools. I mean, I had the city of, I'll call about Rockwall and Royce City ISDs have come to talk to me, and they say, this is all great. We love the compression because you guys are paying for that, the state. And the state should. It should be a 50-50 balance. That's about what we like to try to do, is the locals pay about half and the state pays about half, and everybody's pretty happy. When the state says we'll pay half, but we're also going to take away $3 million out of your budget because we're going to pay homestead exemptions for people, that starts to get into the school's pocket as well.
Yeah.
It means as we're growing, the state grows at the rate of about the size of a city of Corpus Christi every year. They're not bringing roads, teachers, water, concrete, infrastructure with them, but they are moving into our communities, and Texas doesn't have a no vacancy sign on it. People are still coming
every day.
We're happy that they are, because they are bringing, there's companies that are bringing jobs. That our economy's one of the the best in the world. I think we're the 8th largest or 9th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
We're not mad at that, but they're not helping us with growth, infrastructure, roads, planning. This goes back to the discussion on MUDs. I mean, when we have growth, there's a give and take.
Right.
Are the schools going to be able to handle it? Do we have enough teachers? Can the roads handle it? Is there water to serve to that area? These are all discussions that we need to be having. And the worst thing you could do is take $3 million from a school's budget, and some of these big districts stand to lose a lot more than that. And so they're very complex and complicated discussions that we're having.
Well, no, and it's fantastic. And something that resonated with me as you were talking was the sunset process. And before the show, we had talked about how every entity could go through a process such as that to make sure that they're efficiently operating, that you're fiscally operating appropriately, that we're being strategic and agile and going forward. And so, I think sometimes that's the immediate shock, is removing money from a budget that we know is already cash strapped. But we have to be thinking strategically going forward that there is an affordability crisis, and how do you fix that? Because values aren't regulated. That's the home prices are dictated what a buyer is willing to pay for a home. The things that we can help with are property taxes, though, which is really where the biggest burden is coming is that it's not that we don't love to live in the great state of Texas and that we don't appreciate that our assets are going up in value. It's just that we have some of the highest tax burden in the country. And that's part of it. Now, we don't have state income tax. Car registration is different. I've lived in New York, I've lived in New Jersey, I've lived in California, and so trust me, they're taking pennies out of your wallet in different ways. We just kind of do it all up front. And I think that's the hard part, is maybe figuring out how we can diversify, how we fund the things that we do need to fund, but that we still protect, the great residents of Texas, because we are the second recipient state of the most immigration from around all the other states in the country. And I think Florida is number one, we're number two, and number three is not even close. And so we just need to continue to do best by the people that already live here, that the people that want to live here, and to make sure that our children have the ability to live here in a clean, well-run, proper environment with infrastructure, utilities, schools, and so forth. So look forward to continuing to hear about that as well. We've got about 15 minutes left. This always goes so fast, and appreciate you. So let's talk about some things that maybe are a passion of yours, Justin, that not necessarily in the session. Again, you are an owner of Regal Realtors. You are a generational realtor. Your family's been in the business for a really long time. You have been rooted in the Rockwall community forever. Okay, here's my mother. Sherry said, I'll ask the ugly question. Any chance property taxes are going away as so many politicians tickled their ears? I don't think they're going away. Yeah, they're going to stay there. So,
the reality is Sherry, what I'd like to see go away is the maintenance and operations portion of the school tax. That's something that we can work towards. I think it's something that can be done in the next 10 years. We have to have a dedicated funding source that's dedicated to making M&O go away in the next 10 years. But you can't make property taxes go away. The fact is, we have to have a public safety component to where we live. We have to have schools. We have to have roads. When you wake up in the morning and you want to turn the water on and get a drink of water or take a shower, you expect that it's clean water and that it runs. Most people, I served on a city council for 5 years before I came here. And one of the things that I always thought was interesting is people would complain about the roads until they were nice to drive on. Nobody ever wrote us a letter that said, thank you for getting the road open, that I can now drive and get my kids to school faster, or get to work faster, to the grocery store faster.
Yeah.
Basic essential city services, school services, county services, flood mitigation, water projects, the dams, roads, bridges. There will always be a need for infrastructure and a mechanism to pay for it. You will never get rid of property taxes unless you wanted to raise a consumption tax that made it so expensive for people to go buy milk, bread, and eggs that you wouldn't be able to even probably, property tax is the best mechanism that we can come up with to pay for our essential services. We could reduce the school taxes significantly if we put our heads to it, though.
Well, I love that, because I've heard a lot of people talk about this, a lot of people smarter than myself, and go through that. And Sherry obviously mentioned sales tax, and you immediately just addressed that with your comment in consuming, eggs and bread and essential things of that nature. And so, but I love to hear that there's a pathway and a solution of reducing that, and then that's what we can do and create that pathway to do so. So, we'll continue to have conversations about that. And that's what's great about Justin, everyone, is that we continue to have conversations with him. Our government affairs director keeps in touch here at MetroTex. We'll go and have breakfast and have check-ins when we can every several months, just to hear what we can do and what Justin's doing on our behalf for the industry and for the constituents. So look at that. You got it all right. She said, keep your foot on the gas, look for the best pathway. So that's the best you're going to get out of Sherry Fehrbach.
Great response, Sherry.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So here's what I was going into is you talking about some things that you're passionate about, but we have one of our esteemed affiliates, Francie Beal, and she said, on a personal note, how do you all maintain a healthy diet and good rest during session?
I wish that was an accurate statement. It's a good question, but it's very difficult. We have early mornings and late nights. We have a fast pace. I think the best thing that I've been trying to do, and this is the most honest I can be about it, is I've been trying to hit 10,000 steps a day. I've got an app on my phone that does that. Every now and then I'll just go take a walk. I'll walk to lunch. Sometimes I'll walk to the Capitol. But most of the time, I try not to take elevators this session. I try not to I take the stairs. I try to walk as many places as I can. And, but it's pretty hard, because we are so fast paced, and the way that our system is set up is there's good food in the back of the committee rooms. And I did probably have my first piece of pizza today, but you're usually on the run. So hopefully it balances out, because, but I have had sessions where I took the elevator most of the time and did the food. So you just have to try to counteract it. But it's not rosy. There's a lot of late nights and early mornings, and we have a lot of our committees start at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And if we had, like I had today, 6 bill layouts that start at 8 a.m., that means that my staff and I have to get there just after 7 to prepare,
Sure.
Or we have to stay till 7 or 8 to prepare for the next day. And then there's so many different functions and receptions. And we mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast that there's Realtor Day, County Day, Insurance Day, Farmer Day, Cattle Rancher Day, Collin County, Denton County, Rockwall County, and they're there, and they're excited because they're at their trip to Austin to come see the deal. So we go to those,
exhausted.
And then you're hanging out with your constituents until it's too late. It's time to go to bed,
Yeah.
And so that's just as honest as I can be. You don't get a ton of sleep, but the good news is that I always look forward to June 1st. So I can go back, and usually I have a pretty standing rule that I don't really take any sort of meetings at all in the month of June, that I could just be getting caught back up on family and business, and maybe take a vacation to Florida with my family.
There you go. No, I think that's fantastic. Now, we did discuss, we just had Realtor Day at the Capitol. And so I was just there, and luckily Matthew Church, who is our government affairs director, and Daniel Gonzalez, who is a lobbyist for both MetroTex and Texas Realtors, they know the lay of the land of the Capitol. I do not. And we came in hot on that bus. Our bus driver got lost. We were going through UT Austin, and I'm sitting here, and unfortunately you weren't there, due to family circumstances. But I was heading your meeting and sitting there sweating, going, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And so they looked at me and they said, let's go. And we ran through what I felt was secret corridors and hallways, and bypassing the elevators, and no, let's go through this door, and running from the back end of that picture to the other side of the picture, going, are we even supposed to be running through this right now? So it's pretty insane, but you can definitely get your steps in.
Well, the good news is that nobody else knows what's going on either. It's my 4th session, and sometimes I have to walk around in a circle till I find the right room I'm supposed to be at. So you're not alone there.
No, it was fantastic, and your staff was absolutely great, Nicole and Ivan, and we had a great turnout, and so it was a fun day. And of course, Texas Realtors is right across the street, and so we were able to mobilize there and have a great grassroots rally. But it was a good time had by all. So, Justin, with the 7 minutes left, let's talk about some things that are most passionate about with you, not just, again, at session, but you as the representative for HD 33 and your constituents. And you've got a lot going on. You've got a lot of things that a lot of people want you to fight. But what are some things right now that have really piqued your interest, that you're trying to figure out how to bring awareness or pathways or solutions to the table?
Well, I appreciate you asking me that question, and I can respond this way. Whenever I sat down with the Speaker of the House, Speaker Phelan, before the session, it was during the session, the beginning part, you go and you meet with the Speaker and you talk to him about committees you want to be on. And I asked him if I could be on Homeland Security and Public Safety, because I'm passionate about public safety, police, fire, the communities, the border issues that are going on, the Department of Public Safety. And then I'm passionate about parks, trails, the outdoors, and those types of things. So I asked him specifically, can I be on Homeland Security and Public Safety? And I'd like to be on Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. I've served on both committees before.
Sure.
I have a passion for both of them. And luckily, the speaker saw fit to put me on both committees. I already have the sunset obligation that he knew that was going on as well. This allows me an opportunity to weigh in on issues like our DPS, our state troopers, our highway patrol, the safety of communities, which is a select committee that he also put me on, school safety, guns, the border, which are all things that I've been really passionate about and that really affect our communities. You're seeing things like the fentanyl crisis. You're seeing illegal immigration and the types of things we're seeing at the border, human trafficking, drug trafficking. These are issues that really affect the state of Texas. And I like having a seat at the table to be able to talk about that. And so I've really enjoyed serving on both Homeland and Community Safety. Community Safety is the one that I just came from right before this broadcast. Then the other committee that is just a phenomenally great committee is Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. It deals with parks, wildlife, hunting and fishing, the outdoors, open spaces, and I'm carrying some legislation this session that really could be a legacy piece for the rest of the state of Texas. Some people probably have heard about the state losing Fairfield Lake State Park to development, and there's more than 7 minutes to talk about there, but the importance of our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren and all of the people that are moving to Texas that we've already talked about to have conservation of state lands, conservation of our natural resources, water projects, conservation easements, open spaces, and the acquisition of future parklands for us to be able to, we are outpacing the growth of the state of Texas. That there will be by 2050 a deficiency in local municipalities having state parks and open parks and trails for their communities to be able to enjoy. So I'm really passionate about the outdoors. I'm passionate about parks and trails, passionate about lakes and water projects. The ecosystem that all of that supports is twofold. It's something for our generation, children and future generations to enjoy, but it's also planning for those water projects and just the amount of groundwater we have and surface water and lakes and rivers and the streams and the cleanliness of that, making sure that we're good stewards of the state. So those are the kind of things that I'm really passionate about. It will continue to be passionate about. And it gives you an opportunity to, weigh in on the things. There's 150 of us, so we're not all working on the same thing. So I enjoy working on the issues we just talked about, as well as the sunset issues and digging in, rolling up your sleeves and being a legislator that really cares about how the state runs. And so I've enjoyed, it seems like it's crazy. We're already halfway through session. It's my fourth one. But I'm so blessed to get to do this. It's an honor. I have people from time to time that will stop me at a restaurant and say, thank you for what you do. And my response is it's an honor to get to do it.
Well, and what a great segue into Stacy's comment. Great conversation, Q&A. Well done, you guys. Thanks for your leadership with Realtors, Ashley Gentry, as well as, and to you, your constituents of HD 33, Justin Holland. Blessings. Thank you, Stacy. We appreciate you. Would you happen to know Stacy, maybe, Justin?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but Stacy happens to be one of my 150 wonderful Regal rock stars.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I think it's great that you have not only support from your constituents, you have support from your realtors. We put all of Justin's social media handles in there. Those aren't personal ones. Those are the ones that you can check in to get updates, to know what's going on during this legislative session. We've got Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Justin does a great job of trying to update everyone week to week of what's going on, the progress is that it's being made. So definitely tune in. While he might be representing HD 33 specifically, he is representing all the residents of the state of Texas as well. So, I would be remiss though if I didn't plug this, and I know it's backward, but it says we are essential. And this is actually some tree pack swag we're trying to evolve and to bring things to the forefront. And that was one of them where Tree Pack, which is obviously our real estate pack, that we can invest in that as realtors in our industry that help us sit there and support positive legislation, get elected officials to that table, just as yourself, Justin. Tree Pack is here to support people like you that are supporting the realtor initiatives, because without you, we don't get these things pushed forward. As Sherry said, always essential. And that was the biggest thing during the pandemic. There was specifically in our area, a county commissioner that was trying to make it basically that we were not essential workers to exchange real estate for a short amount of time. So I remember specifically having to drive around with an attorney's letter stating I was an essential worker because I still had people that needed to exchange real estate for job loss and other things of that nature. So we remained essential during that time. And this is a great silicone, environmentally friendly cup that can be used for water. This might have alcohol in it because we're on live television and that just keeps me on my toes. But you can reach out and you too can get the Tree Pack swag, so we can continue to support people like Justin and our other elected officials, so you can advocate for individual property owners' rights locally and statewide. So we appreciate you, Justin, so much. And continue to fight the good fight and get those 10,000 steps in tomorrow.
That's right. I'm going to try to, and I will plug, like you said. So Facebook, my Facebook is Justin, or facebook.com/JH, the number 4TX. That's where you're going to get a lot of information, not just HD33 related.
Awesome.
We put out a lot of good information about what's going on in session. I also do a weekly recap email that we put out on Fridays that it's kind of district specific, but it does let you know what's going on. So we do try to communicate weekly, daily, every few days, all of the above. If you follow me on Twitter, there's usually not a whole lot of, that's more of my lighthearted keeping up with what's going on in the state and the country and funny little political stuff that's going on. So you won't see, I always get people that kind of troll me on Twitter about not being serious. And I'm like, go look at Facebook.
I love it. I love it that you're friendly on Twitter, where that's where most of the people are doing their trolling. So
yes,
that's
lots of trolls.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Letitia, for the kind remarks. And thank you, Justin. I know you can probably go eat, sleep, rest, hydrate, do something right now. And we appreciate all of your continued efforts. We'll see you again. Let's keep in touch, and good luck for the remainder of session.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And thanks for having me on again.
Of course. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone.